I'm Iman the Alchemist, and today I'm going to share the story of Juneteenth.
Juneteenth is probably something I didn't learn about until I was maybe in my 40s. Certainly didn't learn it in school, and I took many courses in American history, including some African American history.
Where did you go to school?
Harvard University.
When I heard about it, I was an adult.
Slavery and freedom are essentially the roots. They're the DNA, they're the fabric of our country's infrastructure. Whether that be economic, social, emotional, it's infused in everything. We share a collective, very violent trauma. And in order to heal that, we must go back in time and understand the facts. So what is Juneteenth? General Granger took his Union soldiers down to Galveston, Texas to inform the slaves of their newly freed status. There weren't enough Union soldiers down there at that time to protect the slaves. The white slave owners wanted to maintain that system, so they withheld the information. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863. So if you can do the math, and even if you can't do the math because I'm doing it for you, you see that it took 2.5 motherfucking years for them to get the message to these slaves. Not okay. Let's explore why. Why did it take 2.5 years for white slave masters to honor black slaves' newly found freedom? My answer to you, which is my answer for anything dealing with America, is money, economics, finances.
You, quote, invested, I guess, thousands of dollars, what they claim they did in those days. You do not want to give up that investment, and you will fight. You had these roaming gangs of people going around trying to recapture slaves so that the slave owners can recoup their investment. It was a very violent time for the slaves when they were freed. For the slave owners and others who do not see them as human, it was very difficult and challenging for them to let them go.
Now, there are 3 different versions of the story that seek to explain why it took 2.5 fucking years for the news of freedom to reach the slaves in Texas. Version 1, a messenger was murdered on his way to Texas where he planned to inform the slaves of their newly freed status. That is so crazy. Don't shoot the messenger. Version 2, federal troops actually waited for the slave owners to reap the benefits of one more cotton harvest season. And what's that about? The control of black bodies for white economic gain. Version 3, the white slave owners in Texas knew that their slaves should be set free the whole time. But in service of their economic gain, they withheld that information from their slaves. So the nature of the working dynamic between white slave owners and newly freed black slaves was still so tightly wound, especially emotionally.
I would imagine that any enslaved person would feel like a caged bird.
So the system of slavery was just done, right? No, the system stayed the same, but the name of it changed because Southern states enacted laws, also known as black codes, in order to maintain the system legally. And guess who stepped in to legally enforce these black codes? White policemen and state militia, many of whom were previous Confederate soldiers. This is the legacy of our modern day police force in America, people. This clearly illustrates the structural toxicity that runs through the veins of our country's relationship between policemen and black citizens' bodies. It still took motherfuckers 2.5 years to inform slaves in Texas of their status. Juneteenth is one example of the continuous exploitation of black bodies in America. This is why Black Lives Matter. This is why protests are happening. It's time to break the cycle.
400 years. It's not something that we dare forget, unless it could be repeated. It's not something we dare forget. Juneteenth, for that reason, is tremendously important. It's something that we should celebrate forever and ever. I plan to until I die.
Here's the kicker. 50 million of us, bottom of the ocean, but we're still here.